It's a very interesting subject. The myth of India's East, going beyond the divisive binaries of fact and fiction. And it's very interesting because it's really Eastern Conclave, one Assamese and one Odia. We would be talking about the East in Bengal. So it's truly an Eastern convergence. I'll start with a tweet of yours. You have pinned this tweet. And you say, mythology needs to be differentiated from other types of stories, legends which are political, and fables which have moral agenda. Mythology establishes worldview and hegemony. Rational secularism is based on myth of justice and equality in Islam and Christianity. Now I have two questions. First is, in today's era, where mythology is getting mixed with history, what are the legends or political stories that disturb you the most? And secondly, you have mentioned Christianity and Islam. Does that mean that the myth of justice and equality exists only in these two religions and not in Hinduism, which is very much a big issue in current India?
So let's begin with the first question. I forgot.
The disturbing political story or legend.
People use words like culture, civilization, based on 19th century ideas. The 21st century ideas are very different. So really they have to read the more recent books, the recent scholarship, post-structural scholarship. Civilization words and all are used, they are very old, very colonial ideas. So when somebody uses words like civilization, I said, oh my God, the British have come back. So these are very, very old ideas. They're outdated. Nation state is a tough idea which is crumbling rapidly with the virtual space coming in, with cryptocurrency coming in, with challenging the nation state. So the new discourse is changing dramatically. And talking about, the words like justice and equality, remember Islam and Christianity are based that you live only once. So you live only once, and in this one life, you have to do whatever you do, and at the end of this one life, you'll be judged by God. So God is a judge in Islam and Christianity and Judaism. So Qayamat is a very important concept. Adl, justice, is a very important concept. Sistine Chapel, God is a judge. You will never find that artwork in Hindu art. God is not a judge in Hinduism. God is an accountant. So God, because you live many lives and it's based on rebirth. So there's always a balance sheet that you look at, not a legal system. So it's not based on constitution as much as what do you owe society? What do you owe society? Who is a borrower? Who is a lender? Who must give? Who must receive? That's the conversation. So the traditional Indian model is constantly based on who is privileged, who is not. What does a privileged man do with his life? What does a person without privilege, what can he expect? Swarg, Nark, all these are based on accounting principles. They are not based on judgment day. There is no concept of Qayamat. There is no concept of judgment day in Hinduism. It's not there.
But gods have become very sensitive these days, Hindu gods primarily. We just saw recently the goddess Kali smoking, and it's creating a huge controversy in the country. And goddess Kali primarily belongs to the West Bengal culture. It's hugely worshipped in West Bengal and Assam and Odisha also. So how do you react to these controversies? Should we chill out that this is freedom of expression, or we should be sensitive to our gods?
See, anger is political dividend, right? It's currency. If I get angry, I get outraged, I win votes. So in a political vocabulary, anger is useful. Whether you're really angry or not, even Bhagwan bhi leela karte hain. So this whole game of I'm angry with you and I'm upset with you helps you become powerful. Nowadays Natya Shastra is more important than Dharma Shastra. So नौटंकी से राज्य मिल सकता है. पहले जमाने में युद्ध करते थे, आजकल
किसके तरफ आप इशारा कर रहे हैं?
सब. We have brilliant actors everywhere. Those who are crying are actors. Those who are crying for justice are actors. This side, that side, everyone. So Nautanki is the big, Natya Shastra is the big theme. You have to go. I would recommend future politicians to go to drama school. Because that's what gets you the votes. You give the great speech and people will believe you. So it is Natya Shastra. It doesn't matter what you genuinely believe in, what you genuinely care for. If you get angry, you get your vote. So Navaras you should learn, Bhava you should learn, Natya Shastra, Angika, when to bow, whom to bow to. Then there is Mudraएं.
I'm tempted to ask who has the best potential among the current lot of politicians.
See, I'm a mythologist, so as per some people, that is false history. They don't understand the meaning of these words. Mythology is somebody's truth. Fact is everybody's truth. And fiction is nobody's truth. To study mythology, you have to accept other people's truth. If Nautanki gives you Simhasan, then you will do Nautanki. Because that's the design of democracy. Democracy says, we will vote you if you appeal to our emotion. We don't care whether you genuinely perform. It doesn't matter whether you give us jobs, whether the economy is doing well, or whether my life is better. It doesn't matter. If you make me angry, play with the right emotion, I will give you power. So then Nautanki will come. So that's the most important skill set today.
Let me come back to the East first. Political stories, as you said, legends are political stories. And we have seen that there is a urgency and there is a desire to create a certain kind of political stories and narrative in India, and which has probably historically affected certain parts of the country. We see that characters are only from a particular area. Even in your mythology, if we look at all the top characters that we know of, they are from, say, mostly from North India. Do you think that regional disparity or an uniform narrative is not a current problem, but a very mythological, historical problem?
See, 50% of India lives in the Gangetic Plain. So most of the votes come from the Gangetic Plain. So gods also live in the Gangetic Plain. Mathura is in the Gangetic Plain, Kashi is in the Gangetic Plain, Ayodhya is in the Gangetic Plain. So nobody cares for Kerala unless there's a controversy. I remember being in Rajputana, a Rajput state, and the Rajputs were talking about how Rajputs are not treated properly. So I asked them, so do you know about Gajapati? And they said, no, ye Gajapati kaun hote hain? So I said, acha, so you expect me to know all the stories of Rajasthan and Rajputana, but you know nothing about Odisha. You know nothing about Gajapati. I said, have you heard of Indradumna? Have you heard of Prataprudra? Have you heard of Kakatiyas? Have you heard of the Pala kings, the Sena kings, the Ahoms? And he looked blank. And a few minutes before that, of course, he was talking about Hindu civilization. But Hindu civilization in their minds is Hindi civilization. And even there it is Gangetic. 50% of the votes, no sir. The rest of India don't matter. We will earn money so that they will spend the money. And that's the way the story goes. The gods are also North India. We never talk about the gods of Maharashtra. Vithala. We never talk of Srinathji. We never talk of Tirupati. We never talk of the rest of India. Kamakhya. Vishnupur temples. The rest of India is not there. So that's the big thing. Because when they say, aapko Hindi nahi pata hai, to I say, tu Marathi madhe bolna. So no, why should I speak in Marathi? I said, I am an Odia who speaks Marathi because I live in Bombay. Why should I not speak in Marathi? Why should I not speak in Odia? Why should I not speak in Bengali? Why should I not speak in Assamese? Why Hindi? I don't know which language the gods spoke. They said, nahi, wo Bhagwan to Sanskrit bolte the. I said, tumko kaise pata? श्री कृष्ण तो ब्रजभाषा बोलते थे. ब्रजभाषा बोलते हैं वो. All the poetry of Krishna is written by Chandidas, Vidyapati. Then I said, have you heard of the Tamil Krishna? Have you heard of Perumal? Nahi pata. They know nothing. Zero understanding of South, East, West. Everything is Mughal Rajput, Mughal Rajput, Mughal Rajput. And I'm like, oh God, please, thank God Mani Ratnam is making a film on Cholas.
He is making a film on Cholas, but we have just seen a movie on Prithviraj Chauhan.
We have seen?
India has seen.
I thought the theatres went empty, no?
That's what I wanted to hear. So, as you were saying that injustice has been done to, kind of injustice has been done to the east or south or other regions of the country. Now we are very hopeful because textbooks are being rewritten. So justice will be probably done. But at the same time, I'll quote another tweet of yours. You were saying that mythology, and this is for the next generation. So this is in the context of next generation. Like mythology, there is no true history. True history is propaganda and false history is mythology. You tweeted this for the next generation. You were saying that in future, for students, this will be the truth.
No, so let me clarify because there are a lot of quotes and when you write it, people... So step one, I never talk of injustice because remember, injustice is not an Indian concept. This concept of justice, injustice, sin, original sin, apocalypse, 1,000 years of slavery, 100 years of slavery. Chinese have the story of 100 years of slavery. Indians have the story of 1,000 years of slavery. These ideas are based on a biblical structure. There is no injustice in the world. Nature takes care of everything. It sort of balances everything out. So it's the way nature is designed. But my tweet was this, that today historians are considered to be fiction writers. If you look at the history department, it's only a question of time before the history department will be headed by fiction writers. We are going in that direction, where if you're good at fiction, you could be the head of history department.
Are you indicating to any particular writer,
No.
author?
It's an idea. Ideas are far more important than people. As we know, civilization is more important, right? Shabd. So, you are genuinely telling people not to believe scholars. Panditon ki ninda ho rahi hai. Don't believe scholars, don't believe scholars, don't believe scholars. So you'll create a generation of people who don't believe scholars. And they will believe that fiction, and I know so many people who believe fiction as history. And they ask me questions and I'm listening to them and I'm like, Praman, Shabda Praman, Anuman. Praman is a very big concept in Hinduism, if you understand ki sach kya hota hai. And it's very complex ideas. But you have to respect scholarship. But we are in a generation where fiction writing will soon be the head of history. As a mythologist, I find it amusing because mythology is somebody's truth. It's not everybody, it doesn't based on evidence. It is like whatever you say is true for you. Why do you believe in this? Why do you not believe in this? So, mythology does not care for fact and fiction. It doesn't care. It just says, what do you believe in? If you believe there is God, there is God. If you believe there is Hindu Rashtra, there is Hindu Rashtra. If you believe that everybody in India should speak Hindi, that's your belief. Because when I believe you, I can have a conversation with you. I don't argue because argue is fact and fiction ki dunya is vivad wali dunya. Where I am right, you are wrong. I am right, you are wrong. And jiske haath mein talwar hota hai, wo hamesha sahi hota hai. Your boss is always right. Right? Because he has the power to take away your employment. Right? We know that. I can raid your house. I can put you in jail. So whatever you say is the truth. Right? The truth is determined like that. So mythology recognizes this. Mythology recognizes the stories change over time. That Christianity today is the result of the Roman Empire. Not because of Jesus Christ. It's because the Roman emperors became Christian. So Jesus Christ didn't create Christianity. Roman Empire created Christianity. Right? But so when you realize these ideas of mythology, you realize that what are we telling the next generation? We are telling the next generation.
So are we seeing the creation of new Hinduism in the current India?
See,
Roman Empire created Christianity. So a
moment
uniform kind of Hinduism.
So look what happened to Christianity. Let's go to history. since, although I'm a mythologist, I'll talk about history. Roman Empire takes Christianity in the 3rd century. In the 6th century, Islam rises and counters it. The Roman Empire fought the Parthians. The moment Roman Empire becomes Christian, the Parthian Empire and the Middle East becomes Muslim. Then you have the Crusades. So there is a fight between the two. So they didn't become all powerful. And then the Roman Empire divides into the Eastern and the Western Roman Empire. And then the Holy Roman Empire is destroyed by Protestant fights with the Protestants and the Catholics. And the Orthodox Christians are on the West. So nothing lasts forever. Buddha said nothing lasts forever. Hindus say nothing lasts forever. Only politicians believe they last forever.
I can see a prediction here. I can sense that. But I want to become devil's advocate. You talked about why Hindi. But we have so many regions, so many languages. Now, how would I know the history of, say, Marathas if I have to read it in Marathi? Or even for the Bangla history or say Odia history. How would I know that? We need a common language, and English cannot be the common language in India.
Well, there is no common language. You look at history of India. Before, we want to make Hindi, which is a North Indian language. Before that, it was Farsi. English came with the court language. It's called a court language. It was English. Before that, it was Farsi. Before that, it was Sanskrit. Before that, it was Pali. So court language has changed in India. And ask yourself, 8th century, Adi Shankaracharya lived in Kerala, traveled across India. Which language did he speak? And then people will tell me, Malayalam. And I said, no, Malayalam didn't exist in the 8th century. It emerged in the 13th century. So then they say Sanskrit. I said, Sanskrit was only spoken by Brahmins. How did he talk to people on the road when he's traveling across India? When he's going from village to village to village, he has to engage with people. He is talking in the local language. He would know the local language, the many Prakrits. Like for example, how old is Bengali? How old is Assamese? How old is Odia? I mean, if you reduce the history of India to 7 days, let me teach you something very interesting. If India has a 5,000-year history, if Harappa civilization existed on Monday, then you know what happened on Saturday? The Mughal Empire came and went, the Maratha Empire came and went, the British Empire came and went, and the Republic of India is right there today. All this happened on Saturday. Harappa is on Sunday. So Monday को क्या हुआ, Tuesday को क्या हुआ, Wednesday को क्या हुआ, Thursday को क्या हुआ, Friday को क्या हुआ. These 5 days between Sunday and Saturday. In Saturday, you have your 1,000 years of Gulami. But nobody talks about Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Vedic culture is Wednesday. We don't even know what happened on Monday. It's confusing. We have no information. We know that Vedic culture was there on Wednesday, unless of course your Guruji tells you Vedic culture existed 5,000, 10,000 years ago, which dimensional Gurujis do say. Because they don't believe in time, right? Time is a cosmic idea, like civilization. But if you follow history, Harappa was on Sunday, Monday we don't know, Tuesday was Vedic civilization, Wednesday is when the Buddhism, Greek, Alexander comes, Thursday is when you have got the South Indian cultures emerging. So you have this whole history of India. When you start packaging in the 7 days, you realize timelines are very big. And we just have not been taught. When did Satvahans live? Do we know about Satvahans? Which language did they speak? Did they speak Tamil? No, they didn't. Which language did the Kakatiyas who established Telugu culture? Only 13th century. When we talk about Alauddin Khilji and all those films which are made, Prithviraj Chauhan, what was happening in the rest of India when Prithviraj Chauhan was fighting? Do we know the Chola Empire was going from the south to the north? They have attacked Bengal at that time. The Chola Empire was very big along the eastern coast of India. In that same time, Ahoms were traveling from Southeast Asia to what is today Assam. 12th century. But all the attention is on Prithviraj Chauhan. Obviously, when you pay attention to Prithviraj Chauhan, the rest of India is going to be forgotten. What happened in the rest of India when Prithviraj Chauhan was fighting in Delhi and Ajmer and that area? We don't know. We are not taught कि 12th century में महाराष्ट्र में क्या हुआ, 12th century में असम में क्या हुआ? 12th century में how many people in the Gangetic Plain know of the Pala Empire? How many of them know of the Sena Empire?
But that's the failure of the scholars, as you said, that
So you had one group
fiction writers will replace the scholars, but that's where the problem is. They missed those centuries.
Fiction writers will do what the king tells them to do. Raja ka navratna hota hai.
But even the scholars didn't do their job, because that's why nobody knows about Lachit Borphukan.
Ultimately, it depends on who pays your bills. Ultimately, it comes down to the paisa kaun deta hai. Who can put you in jail and who can take away your food in the house. So, you know the very famous thing, the poet says that if you have to pay, all the kings, they would go to kings. Yagyavalkya would go to Janak. And he would say, why did he go to Janak? He didn't want to go to Janak, but Janak says, mere paas gaay hai. I have cows. If you impress me, I will give you cows. So I have to impress the king to get the cows. And the king controls all the cows. If king controls all the cows, so there's no objectivity. See, mythology is somebody's truth. The world of mythology doesn't value objectivity. It only values subjectivity and understands the various political forces that work towards creating a narrative and a story. The economic forces, the political forces. Such kuch nahi hai. Such is the katha. So Ramayana is told as a katha. Lavakusha is telling the story of Ramayana to Ram. I mean, Ram listens to it. His first statement, kiske baare mein baat kar rahe ho? And they saying, no, it is your biography. He said, I don't believe it. This doesn't seem to be my life. Which story are you telling me? He doesn't even recognize his own children telling him the story because his children live in the forest. So the Ramayana was first narrated to Ram by Lavakush. The first Mahabharata was narrated when Janmajaya is killing the snakes. He's massacring the snakes because he said the snakes killed my father. And the Mahabharata is told to tell, but you know what? Your father burnt the forests where the snakes lived. Stories are told not for justice. Stories are told to calm you down and to tell you you don't matter. That is the purpose of good storytelling. Ki no king matters, no poet matters. In infinity, anant mein, hum sab shunya hai. That is the purpose of scholarship. When you read the history of India, when you read the mythology, Ramayana, Mahabharata, last mein Shri Ram jal samadhi lete hain na?
Are you indicating in a way that scholarship hasn't existed in India? Because you said that only thing that matters who pays your bills. So whatever history we are studying or seeing till now, all this is paid history?
It's called always, you know, when you read the scriptures, they'll always ask, Tumhara ऋण कौन भरता है? You should always, I always tell people, if I want to understand you, I don't just believe your autobiography. I will also read the circumstances in which you lived. If you want to understand Swami Vivekananda, you don't just read what Swami Vivekananda has written. You have to understand Swami Vivekananda lived in the colonial era. He lived before Harappa was discovered. He came from an educated, affluent Bengali family and therefore had access to education. When you read the history of Swami Vivekananda, you understand his writings. That is good scholarship. When you read Ramayana, you have to ask, when was Ramayana put down in writing? When was why do they say ये Treta Yug में लिखा गया था, ये Dwapar Yug में लिखा गया था? They are trying to tell you, look at the context. Look at the context. Because if you don't appreciate the context, then you say whatever is told is the truth. When somebody says there's only one God, I said, who tells this? Oh, who are these people? Where do they come from? Somebody says there are many gods. Who are these people? Where are they coming from? When somebody says there's no God, in most cases, either he's very rich or very poor. One says he's too arrogant and says there is no God. And the poor is so frustrated, he says there is no God. You have to understand the context in which it is told. हर कहानी का एक context होता है. इसलिए भगवान के मूर्ति में भी एक फ्रेम डाला जाता है, जिसको मेढ़ो बोलते हैं उड़िया में. दुर्गा स्टैच्यू इज नॉट प्लेस्ड अलोन ना, उसके पीछे एक बैकग्राउंड होता है और उसके ऊपर एक मूर्ति होती है. इफ यू लुक केयरफुली इन when you look at Durga statue, behind her there is a little Shivji ka statue, tiny statue. If you go to Shiva temple, on top of Shiva there is always an image of a Kirti Mukha, who is with his tongue sticking out. वो जीभ ऐसा निकाल के रखा करके, like Kali. Why? Saying that, oh, you think you're very smart? I know the truth. I know the truth. You know, talking about truth, and if you have time, I would like, since the mythology session, let me tell you a story of truth and fact and fiction and everybody's truth to entertain the audience. Because, you know, even I think maybe if I do good Nautanki, I'll get votes. So,
Are you intending to go to politics?
so let me tell you a story. And let us, so you know, महाभारत युद्ध के बाद, after महाभारत युद्ध के पश्चात, एक भीम और अर्जुन के बीच में लड़ाई हो जाती है. So the Pandavas have won, and Bhim and Arjun start fighting with each other. And Bhim tells that I am the greatest warrior in the world, and Arjun says I am the greatest warrior in the world. मैं धनुर्धर हूँ, मैंने सबसे युद्ध जीता है. And Bhim says that I have killed all the Kauravas, मैं गदाधर हूँ, I am the greatest. So they go to Krishna and justice के लिए कृष्णा के पास जाते हैं. Krishna says, देखो, I was always with Arjun, so my view is biased. Because मैं रथ में था, तो मेरा bias है. तो तुम जाओ, उस पहाड़ के ऊपर जाओ, उस पहाड़ के ऊपर एक पेड़ है, उस पेड़ के ऊपर एक सर है. He can see the battle from a different vantage point. So he will be objective. He will not be biased. तो थर्ड पार्टी को पास जाओ. तो दोनों भाई जाते हैं पहाड़ के ऊपर पेड़ के पास, उस सर को देखते हैं. They look at this and they ask him that, please tell us who is greater, Arjun is greater or Bhim is greater. And then the head looks at them and says, who is Arjun? Who is Bhim? Then they say, don't you know we are the great warriors, we are the Pandavas. He says, who are the Pandavas? He says, what war have you been seeing, you foolish fellow? Whole day you were looking at the war. Didn't you see the Pandavas were fighting the Kauravas, the good dharma humne sthapna ki? He says, I am sorry, I did not see any Pandavas, Kauravas, Arjun, or Krishna, Vrishna, kuch nahi dekha maine. I just saw stupid kings fighting each other over land. I have seen this land before the kings came, I will see the land after the kings came. बीच में कुछ राजा आए, बेवकूफों के जैसे लड़ रहे थे, उसको डेमोक्रेसी बोल रहे थे, उसके बाद नया राज्य आया. जमीन तो जमीन रहेगी. सो सनातन के सामने आपका मूल्य कुछ नहीं है. बट यू वॉन्ट टू बी द ग्रेट हीरो, फोटो आएगा, आपका नोबेल प्राइज मिलेगा. बट
किसको?
किसी को भी.
फिर भी आप कोई तो मन में है आपके.
हम और आप. Why should you not get the Nobel Prize? Why should I not get the Nobel Prize? Equality, remember? And justice. But this is the story of Hindu. You want to talk about Hindu civilization? Hindu civilization is about where God is infinity. Anant. Anant के सामने सब शून्य है. तो ये गुस्सा, ये माया की दुनिया, वो सिंहासन मिल जाएगा, तलवार मिल जाएगा, पैसा मिल जाएगा. I always tell people, who is a rich person? The person who gives you money. Others are not rich. If कोई आपको पैसे, if you don't give me money, you are not rich. If the richest man on earth doesn't give me money, he is not rich. You are rich only when you give me money. Who is a powerful person? Who gives you power? गरीब आदमी तुमसे power लेता है ना. So be very clear in your head when you meet rich and powerful people कि they are wanting your wealth and your power.
We're running out of time. My last question, and please give it direct answer. You are a mythologist, so who is your favorite character in mythology and in Indian political context, in the current political context, who do you think most resembles to that character?
So my favorite character is, Ganesha's rat. कोई उसको देखता नहीं है ना, because वो बिचारी एक मराठी मध्ये त्याला उंदीर म्हणतात. Since we are a multilingual country, we should talk in different languages. So चूहा is very important to me, because चूहा आपका धन हमेशा चुराएगा. And for me that चूहा is wonderful. It reminds me of election bonds.
I ask for an individual.
No.
You're playing safe.
Not really. I don't want a tax raid.
Okay. You don't want a tax raid.
I earn a lot of money. And I don't want to be in jail. I want like my security. I like my life. अभी क्यों पढ़ना है? जिस राजा का तलवार हम देखते हैं, राजा को थोड़ी ना देखते हैं. तो राजा आते जाते हैं, तलवार हमेशा रहता है.
So you want to be on the right side of the Raja?
I want to be alive. I like being alive. Do you have a problem with that?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
On that note, we would like to conclude this session. It was wonderful having you here and such a intense but delightful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mr.
Thank
Pattanaik.
you.